I was bored. I was starting to have that narrative in my head of what I now recognize as toxic nostalgia. But at the time, obviously, I didn't. And I think that's also very much limited my capacity to grow.
And maybe I didn't want to be a teacher anymore.
And I was like, if this doesn't work, do I need to consider another profession? Could I be an education officer, working at a museum or at the aquarium?
I was actually considering leaving the teaching profession 100%. I love sustainability, I love animals, and I considered maybe doing a short course, something like zoology or something like that. I'd love to work in a zoo, Hillsville or Melbourne Zoo or a farm.
And then I always thought, could I be in sports admin? But then I would have had to have gone back to university to do more study, and I would have to go back to the starting wage. I've got a mortgage now. I couldn't afford that.
I knew I needed to do my master's or something a bit more meaningful. And I got into the University of Oslo, and that was a 2-year experience of, it was amazing. 1 year in Norway, coursework and fun travel. And then I decided I was going to do my thesis, and the research would be in Lebanon for the Syrian refugee crisis. And I also did an internship at the UN. It was something I really wanted to do because I wanted to just get out of teaching and education.
So I was at my first school for 3 years, and at the end of it, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just wanted to quit. And then my mum talked me into doing another year.
I wanted to leave and still be in the education profession, but not as a teacher. I was very disillusioned by it. I don't know whether it was the profession itself or just the school. But when I actually moved schools, it was like I got my mojo back.
So I stayed on, and I sort of got my mojo back.
Just a different environment, different people, and different expectations.
I've got my dream job, head of service learning, which I kind of pushed for after I went to a PD on transforming service learning there. And I was like, this is exactly up my alley, and was exactly what I was doing at my previous school. And we'd formed such a great program, and it's exactly what I want to do here.
It was probably at the end of my 6th year, really, that I started feeling really comfortable.
Now I'm really thinking about doing a PhD, but I don't know exactly what to do it in, like service learning. And now that I've got this role and I've got a time allowance for it, I'm like, can I do a PhD as well?
I'd always meant to teach in the UK. I started in May to July in one school, and then September 2016 to until I quit in December. They were like, please stay until the end of term 2, and I was like, no.
My partner and I were sort of really keen to still travel because we had that amazing 4 months of travel. So in 2016 and 2017, we lived in London and did CRT and a mixture of secondary and primary. The longest kind of contract I filled there was for a term.
I had some friends who moved to the UK and decided to do teaching there. So at the back of my mind, I was like, what can I do? Restless feet. Something's got to change.
After my 6th year, my partner and I, we went and lived in London for 2 years doing mainly CRT, then got sick of that, so into the classroom for a bit, and then sick of that, so back into CRT. It's just not fun to teach over there. You walk into some schools and you just go, what's going on here? Like, the kids would walk in and see me and just be like, you almost see the glee in their faces. They go, their normal teacher's not here, so they just think it's a free pass. It was a good test of my capability, still learning a lot. Yet kids come up and go, sir, you actually taught me something today, because I think they have such a low expectation and view of CRTs.
The school was a little rough, but my classes were so wonderful, and B had a fairly similar experience when she worked in the UK. Just the school system and the management is so political that it stops being about teaching and it becomes being about faking results. It was really frustrating, and everyone kept being like, oh Mag, oh the Australians just have their own way.
Part of the agreement was that I'd only work 4 days a week, with either Monday or Friday off, so I could trip around the world, which I did.
By the end of it, I was like, I miss my friends. It's like 1 to 3 years is what most people do. So most of my friends were leaving, and it gets a little exhausting because people come every 3 months. It gets exhausting making new friends every 3 months. So eventually I was just like, I'm done.
Ideally, want to get up to like learning specialist level, but I hear that's just not going to happen. The way it's done here, the people that are in those positions are not going anywhere.
The boss was all about developing young leaders. So I was really thankful that in my 4th year of teaching, I was able to get a leadership role. It was really good for me, and it was a real vote of confidence for me as a teacher that he knew that I could do this job. That was my first year of being in charge. And that makes you doubt yourself. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I'm not experienced enough for this job. There were so many people that were more experienced than me.
There were these learning specialist jobs, but I was pregnant, so I didn't go for them. And I said to my principal, I feel like in my career, there's always been one person above me or one situation that meant I didn't go for it, or I got pregnant, or something happened. And I just never quite got there. He said, there are learning specialist jobs coming up at the end of the year. And he said, you should go for it. And I said, I'm part-time mum, how can I go for it? And he said, you can still apply for a full-time position and then accept it at a pro rata rate. I was gobsmacked because no one does that. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah. So I went for it, not thinking I was going to actually get it.
I'd like to get more experience across the board, so that way I can have a higher position.
Yeah, I was having to take on a lot of the leadership stuff at my old school, and I felt like I just hadn't taught long enough or anything yet. Just give me one moment. Where was I? Yeah, so I felt like I hadn't taught enough or had enough experience. So I didn't feel confident going in and trying to run the place. So that's why I sought out, more experienced teachers and environment with like older staff, just so I could really get my teaching skills up before I did that.
I always feel like that my to-do list always has hundreds of things on it. And it's funny because now I'm in this role, I feel like I'm a mum at school because you always put your kids first and you come second. And I feel like that now at school. I'm always going to check on my team. Every morning I go in and I check on them and I check if they need help with anything, and then I get back to my desk and go, oh God, I have not planned the lesson I'm doing today. So I'm making sure that they're okay before I'm worrying about myself. But I think that's also part of being a leader, is making sure that everyone else is functioning and then worrying about yourself later. This is technically my 10th year teaching, so I should really have a hold on all the other stuff.
If you don't like teaching, that's okay. It's okay to go and do something else. You don't have to be a teacher just because you've done the degree.
I'm just an entirely different person. My self-efficacy is better. I've learned so much about leadership and well-being. I've totally changed. I look back and I think, wow, like who was that baby teacher?